deep over here. Thank you, Charles. I'll talk about it a bit later, but clearly I am what I am because of you guys, what you guys have done for me since I moved here. So I titled my talk, It's Personal, because it always is. It really always is. So let's get the hard part out of the way first, or at least try to. I've given a lot of talks to our community since I started here 24 years ago, but clearly this is one of the more challenging ones I've had to give, partially because it's not something that I'm very proud of and can speak very easily about. Scotland healthcare system, our challenges, our opportunities, our plans, our successes. That's a whole lot easier to talk about than relationships and mental health and feelings and me. But obviously, though, it's primarily hard because December 18, 2012, my wife of 30 years and one of the two passionate drivers behind the early successes of Scotland Family Counseling Center passed away. Clearly, Scotland Family Counseling Center would not be as strong or as well regarded as it is today if it were not for Cheryl's extraordinarily persevering and, where's Charles? I might even say aggressive character and spirit. And more importantly, I would not be who I am, at least the better parts of me, if it were not for what I learned from her. A little bit of it by choice or forced, but most of it from assimilation and just watching her. And certainly the best thing I learned from watching her was her infectious enthusiasm for being all in on whatever your passion might be, even if you found it late in life as she did. And clearly hers was reaching out and helping others, and in particular helping others who had a need. So how many of you have watched Mad Men? You ever watched Mad Men? And how many people remember John Wayne and the single character type he always played? Growing up, my dad was like those characters in John Wayne. Hard charging, my way or the highway, never shared any feelings. He was a smart and confident 22-year-old jock returning from the Army after World War II. Quite a catch for my 16-year-old mom. So they married and began the life of madmen. Social climbing, lots of parties, lots of cigarettes, lots of booze. And all was great until, like the show, he had an affair with his secretary. My mom threw him out. So at 8 years old, I was told I was now the man of the family. Really? Really? But I emulated my dad's stoic demeanor. My mom ended up becoming an alcoholic for a few decades and finally became sober many years later. We had no resources for outside counseling support, but even if we did, 40 years ago, it wasn't something you even considered having a need. It wasn't accepted, even less so than it is today. So it took me nearly 30 years before I learned from my gifted wife counselor that not only can you not really ignore your feelings and what's going on around you, but more importantly, when you fully process them and experience them, your life gets much better. So what's that got to do with each one of you? And why is it personal? Is there anyone out there today who has never faced any mental health or mental illness issues? Anyone growing up or in your family over the decades known somebody close to you that's never had mental disease, never had kids in trouble, never had marital issues, never had family issues? I bet there might be one or two who say, wow, I'm very fortunate, but I bet the majority of people in this room hit a nerve, didn't it? Certainly one of the mantras Cheryl often said to me was that behind every front door is a story filled with a rainbow of emotions and struggles. We just don't know what they are. You know, I was on a panel last week at St. Andrews for the Chamber's Young Youth Entrepreneurial Program with other CEOs and executives, and we responded to questions. And one question asked was, what's the perk? What's the perk of being a CEO? And one clear answer for me was that it is your ability to put your stamp or your brand on your organization as you lead and guide and direct it. And when you see success happens, you can feel proud of what you might have had a little bit of help in making that difference. So if you listen to some of the data in Charles' stories, not all the adjectives that went with them, I started here when I was 30 years old on Valentine's Day as the CEO of your community's healthcare system. So if it weren't for leaders back then, Charles, David Burns, Wayne Evans, John Horn, Bob Gordon, extraordinarily talented and giving community leaders who taught me your values and then let me apply those values as the leader of your healthcare system. So one of the finest compliments I ever received came last week. A community leader I respect immensely told me that he admired how I used my role in the resources of the healthcare system to creatively help support programs like hospice, like Scotland Family Counseling Center. So to a large extent, all those accolades that Charles read off, my brand and the brand that I've helped put on Scotland Healthcare System is your brand. It's a community's brand of integrity, of service above self, a brand of community responsibility to identify the greatest needs, and then working together, either individually or corporately, to address them. Late spring 2011, Charles Jenkins did approach me, wondering what ideas I might have to help the center out as it was at a strategic and financial crossroads. He knew that I was not trying to build an empire for Scotland Healthcare System, but would evaluate if there was truly a mutual win possible for the healthcare system and the center. Despite the fear of having my wife work for me, and knowing who would always be in charge, I joined my staff and the staff of the center to see what we could create. And more genuinely knowing that Scotland Healthcare System could not be called a healthcare system without a commitment to mental health. And knowing that we could create a way to provide some resources without a tremendous amount of risk, establishing a unique partnership became a decision that was easy to sell to our very community-minded board of trustees. So in the fall of 2011, Scotland Family Counseling Center became an affiliate of Scotland Healthcare System, but one that I want everyone clearly to understand, one that is fully responsible for its decisions, direction, and financial commitments. We do provide guidance and direction on a few things, as well as some in-kind services and some basic coverages at minimal cost to us. But other than that, the center functions quite independently. We all know that the mental health system in our country is not a system, but a vastly underfunded, fragmented collection of way too few caregivers with far too many needy individuals. It's a sad, dismal, tragic social rabbit hole that I won't go down, other than to say that our community is not any better, nor probably any worse than any place else in this regard. In fact, I filled out a survey the other day, Charles, from the local management entity, the state organization that oversees Medicaid for about a 14-county area. And they gave about a 15-question survey with all these boxes that you check that said, do we need more inpatient beds or outpatient services for mental health in Scotland? Do we need more providers for adults or more providers for youth? Do we need more education or more resources? It's like all the above, all the above, all the above. We have a community full of needs, physical needs, jobs, poverty, but mental health is just as great a need. But it doesn't get listed in community planning activities as much as it needs to. Partially because, as Danny talked about, solutions are so difficult, but also because there's still too much social stigma attached to couples, families, and children in distress or with real mental illness. The extent of the need remains hidden and invisible. Because of this stigma, without a doubt, the prevalence of mental health needs in our community, like elsewhere, is tremendously underestimated, unappreciated, and as a result, more importantly, undertreated. Scotland Family Counseling Center cannot solve all the mental health needs in our community, but the person or family in crisis doesn't care about the aggregate needs. They just care about their individual need that's right in front of them right then. So like the story of the girl on the beach throwing back the starfish, one at a time, that's what the center does. She responds to her dad's comment that she can't save all the starfish by saying that she saves each one she picks up and throws back. Several hundred times each year, one person, one family, one child, one couple, Scotland Family Counseling Center makes a difference for that individual. Each year, several hundred people in our community, as well as at St. Andrews, better understand their situation, improve their coping abilities, make better decisions, and live better lives through the blend of personal and professional, caring and candor that Charles and Mary Neal provide. And it's not easy. It is not easy. Hardest thing for all of us to learn is that reality does not exist until you make it up, right? Reality doesn't exist till you make it up. Everyone sees the world through our own emotional and rational filters that are developed over all of our life experiences. Great book came out a couple years ago, Switch, that talked about the overwhelming power of the emotions as an elephant and the little rational rider on top who must try and control the elephant. Engaging hearts and minds to reframe a perspective or make a change when in crisis is very difficult. And Charles and Mary Neal and the rest of the staff are excellent at this. When those things get out of balance, if either the emotional elephant can't be controlled or the rational rider is off course, troubles result. And with their compassion and talent, Charles and Mary Neal provide hope and healing and remind all their clients to have faith in their future. And about that enormous underfunding of mental health, it is very real. And you know that's why you are here as well. This year's Silent Samaritan goal is $25,000. Included is a new client aid fund in my wife's memory. As Charles can attest, money was not an issue when it came to helping clients for Cheryl. Her emotional elephant of helping those in need constantly overwhelmed her rational drivers and stampeded right through my drivers and those of Charles at the time, didn't they, Charles? So trust me, I know Harry Houdini could not prove that one could communicate with the dead, but as long as that fund is in her memory, I'll be writing a check. Two of Cheryl's favorite proverbs still hang in my house. Over our bedroom mirror still hangs the plaque, "We rise by lifting others." And brought home from her office, she had a very large picture of a beautiful blossoming flower with a Helen Keller quote, "Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of overcoming it." Leaders create meaning. Leaders create meaning. Because you, as supporters of the Counseling Center, are leaders, you allow Charles, Mary Neal, Jim Bumgardner, and the rest of his board to create critical meaning for people who need it, often at the toughest point in their lives. Because of what you do to support the center, much suffering is overcome, and I sincerely believe that not only are others lifted up, but you and I as supporters rise and are better people as well. As we Christians begin the Lenten season of preparation and reflection, let me close with the verse that best defines the values that this community has taught me to strive to live by. From Micah, "The Lord has shown you what is good and what is required of you, that is, to do justly, to seek mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." So not quite as anonymous as the Silent Samaritan, since we can see each other, but because of our humble commitment to bring more justice and mercy to our community, we help the center provide faith and hope and healing to those desperately needing and seeking it. So thank you for your commitment, once again, to Scotland Family Counseling Center. I'm delighted that Scotland Healthcare System has a little part in helping it, thanks to the very talented staff at the center and its board. And thank you for allowing me to give this somewhat cathartic talk and for branding me with your values. Thank you.